Good afternoon. Today I will be presenting to the American Legion Post 93, which is the local veterans association in my area. They periodically have historians come present on historical topics they think their members might find interesting. I will be presenting on the Boston Tea Party. This event is important to me personally because it actually sparked my love of history. One of my earliest memories is sitting at my grandfather's table for breakfast, and he's telling me the story of the Boston Tea Party. It was like theater happening at the table, and that's what really started my love for history, and then ultimately made a career out of it and a lot of education out of. So let's dive right in. I will be using the America's Historical Imprints database from the Jerry Falwell Library to pull primary sources for my presentation. But before we do that, we're going to begin with a brief overview of the events of the Boston Tea Party. The primary sources that I'll be looking at, they include a notification or announcement of a meeting on November 4th, 1773, and meeting minutes from a meeting on December 1st, 1773 for the people of Boston. So let's get started. One of my favorite works on the Boston Tea Party is by James Fallow, and it's titled The Boston Tea Party. Fallow uses theatrics much like was used during the Boston Tea Party to tell his story. I will reference some ideas from his book during my retelling. In 1773, the Tea Act was enacted to help a struggling East India Company by allowing them to sell tea to the colonies tax-free, but with the colonists still paying the tax. Colonists for years have been protesting the idea of taxation without representation, meaning they were footing the bill, but they did not have any say in the government. They had no representation in the government. Additionally, this put a monopoly on tea, which, wasn't appreciated as well. On the night of December 16th, 1773, Samuel Adams gave a riveting speech to thousands of people gathered on the streets of Boston. He talked of loss of liberty, and the main driving point was that whoever supports the unloading, the vending, or the receiving of the tea is an enemy to the colonies. After his speech ended, a group of men disguised as Mohawk Indians, some would say poorly disguised, made their way to the ships and dumped and smashed 342 chests of tea, which was worth around $2.2 million today in today's currency. This event became known as the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was a bold act of defiance against the British government. It led to further tensions that eventually sparked the American Revolution. There are not a lot of primary sources on the actual Boston Tea Party because so many of the men who participated wanted to keep their identity a secret from fear of repercussions. There are two primary sources that I would like to reference that show the lead up to the Boston Tea Party, though. The first being a notification on November 4th, 1773 from William Cooper. He was the town clerk of Boston, and he was calling a meeting for the people of Boston for November 5th. In this notification, he states they have received a concerning report that the East India Company are shipping a cargoes of tea to the colonies. He speaks of liberties being infringed upon and the need to discuss this concerning matter. This notification serves as the beginning of concerns regarding the shipment. The second source is an article with a summary of meeting minutes from December 1st, 1773, just 15 days before the Boston Tea Party happens. The meeting minutes discusses whether or not the tea should be returned, where it came from, what should come of it. Ultimately, as we know now, the tea was only returned if you count that it was floating in the ocean. Once again, still one of my favorite stories in American history, the Boston Tea Party. It's almost reads fictional and theatrical, which makes it that much more dramatic and interesting to hear. And I hope that you enjoyed hearing about it because I definitely enjoyed telling this story to you today.